Mogesalmebi Trmego. Greetings, friends. In this video, we're going to cover 36 useful words and phrases. You may be wondering, man, there's so many different words to learn. Which ones are useful? What's common? How do I know that this is not just some word that I'm going to read about and never use again? Well, I tried to think about what would be useful and helpful for you, and this is the list that I came up with. And obviously, it varies from depending what your aim is and what your situation is going to be. If you're going to be traveling to Georgia, or if you're going to be trying to meet friends, or if you're going to be buying stuff, it really varies. But this video, I covered kind of a variety of things. Some of the topics included introductions, as well as covering kind of catching up with friends. That's something that comes to mind when I speak with my friends nowadays. I also covered a lot of things kind of related to travel. That's what I found. So if you find yourself going to travel to Georgia and try to get around, I think this will be useful for you. So with that, let's dive in. All right, so this first word is gaijare, or gaijaret, with a t at the end. It's a verb, and it literally means to you be happy, or you all be happy. And it's another way of saying thank you. So instead of saying madloba, which we covered in the past video, it's another way to say thank you so that you don't have to repeatedly use the same word, madloba, which is important to be able to express gratitude, but this is just another way to say it. So, gaijare. Second one is gmadlob, or gmadlobt. You might have learned that. And again, what is the difference between this and madloba? Madloba is the infinitive, and gmadlob, or gmadlobt, is involving people. So it's you, I'm expressing gratitude towards you. So it's a verb that involves multiple persons. And the last one is genatswale, or I think you might be able to say genatswalet. I think this as well is a verb that is literally saying let me take your place, but it's just another way of saying dear or darling. It's an endearing term. And I found that sometimes people have said it to me when I've used the word gaijare, for instance, because I think it's kind of, Georgians might just be surprised that you know this word, I think. And yeah, so it's a good one to know. Ras shrebi. It means what are you up to, or like what's up. And in everyday spoken language, it's kind of slang to say rashrebi. And you don't kind of hear the R, or it's not as clear. And that's actually incorrect, but it is common. And I find that this is so common whenever I'm talking with friends, catching up after a while, and they'll ask me like, "Hey, what's up? What are you up to?" And they'll say "Rashrevi." And so one response that you could have is, you could say, "Ravi, arapers shen, Ravi, arapers shen." And so that just means, I don't know, nothing. You? So Ravi is short for Ravitsi, I don't know. And arapers comes from araperi, which is nothing. It's just in the dative form. And shen means you. So again, you could say Ravi, arapers shen. And of course, you'd probably say a little bit faster. So Ravi, arapers shen. And again, this first one is Rashrevi. So that's a very common way of asking what's up and replying like, nothing. In the last video, we covered the phrase rogorchar, which is how are you? And another response that you can have is vara. And it's, I guess maybe a little bit slangish, and it just means I'm alright. It's literally saying like, I am, right? But it's saying I'm alright. So rogorchar, vara, like I'm alright. And the next one, you could also say nela. So if someone asks you rogorchar, you can say nela. Like nela means slowly, and it's just another way of saying I'm alright. And the third one is ara mishavs, which is I'm okay. And another useful phrase is ara ushavs. So if someone were asking about a third person, you could say ara ushavs, but more commonly you would probably use it in the case of if maybe somebody spilt a drink. You could say something like, ara ushavs, it's no problem, ara ushav, it's alright. Another very common question that I get when conversing with friends is they'll ask me, Rogor midis sakmevi. And this means, how goes your business? It's basically, how are things, how's your work going, stuff that you're up to. So rogor is how, midis is it goes, and sakme is the word for kind of work or things that you're doing, and sakmebi is the plural. So rogar midi sakmebi, and you can respond by saying kargad. Well, you learned that in the last video. You can say tsudad, which means badly. Comes from the word tsudi, it's bad, and for kargad, kargi is good. The last one you can say is zvele burad, zvele burad, and that means as it's always been. It comes from the word zveli, which is old, and I guess kind of in the old way. So just like as it's always, as it was in the old ways or in old times. So these next two words are the animate forms of to have. So the first one is mkhavs, mkhavs. The second one is gkhavs, gkhavs, and that's I have. And then the second one is you have. And so it's something animate, so that would be like a person. So for instance, you would say something like, or someone may ask you, Soli gkhavs? Soli gkhavs? Like, do you have a wife? Or maybe a husband. So kumari, you could say kumari mkhavs. Or maybe you have a child. You could say shuli mkhavs. Or you'd say deda, mama, tsma, or da. So you could have all of these different people that you could talk about that you have, or you could ask someone if they have these. And I think this is very common, at least when I was talking with people that I was just getting to know for the first time. They would often ask me about a family. That's very common. So they'd say, so shuli gkhavs, like, do you have a wife and children? Or dadsma gkhavs, like, do you have a brother or a sister? And I'd say, yeah, game gkhavs, tsma mkhavs, so I have a brother. So that's a very good one to know, and note that that's different. There's a different verb for to have inanimate objects. Okay, so those are two different ones. So this next word is lari, lari, which is the Georgian currency, if you didn't know. It'll be very important because if you're doing any sort of buying of anything, or if you're traveling, or if you're talking to taxi drivers, you should know this. At the very least, as long as you know Lari, you could hold up the amount of fingers so that you're trying to haggle maybe 5 or 10 or whatnot. But if you can manage to learn a few numbers, maybe one of them, I think a useful one, would be the number 5, which is huti. So huti Lari, which is 5 Lari. And that's, I think, important because if you're in Tbilisi, for instance, I've heard generally you shouldn't pay more than 5 Lari to get around anywhere, even from kind of the ends of the city, from one end to the other. And if you're foreign, they'll especially try to charge you more, so just be aware of that and try to stick to, not paying too much. So around 5 is usually a good number. You could also, a side tip, you could use, there was a couple of apps, and I can't remember the name now, but try and look it up, similar to like an Uber type thing that'll really help with making sure that you pay good rates and not haggling in the moment, because then they could really charge you a lot. And the next phrase, so if you want to take it up a notch, you could say something like Tavi suplebis moedanze hut larad amikwan. Tavi suplebis moedanze hut larad amikwan. So maybe you're talking to a taxi driver and you want to go to Freedom Square. You could forget to put the definition, but this means will you take me to Freedom Square, which is the Tavi suplebis moedanze. Hut larad, 4-5 Lari, amikwan, like you will take me. So this note that this huti lari changes to hut larad, like that's the adverb, so taking me for that much. So that's a good one if you want to take this, just not do the basics of just knowing Lari, but putting it into a useful phrase. So again, for anyone traveling throughout Georgia, I think it's important that we cover some of the most common forms of transportation, and the first one would probably be marshutka, marshutka. And I believe that's a Russian word, but it's what they use in Georgia, and it just means refers to the vans, these sort of generally maybe 16 passenger vans that go all throughout Georgia. And I thought it was wonderful because one, they're very inexpensive, two, they're they're pretty efficient with getting around. I mean, you can get most places throughout Georgia just by marshuka. Note that it's not always the most comfortable. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes there's a lot of people, sometimes there's animals on these vans, but that's, I think, part of the adventure. The next one would be taxi, taxi, which is a taxi. It's obvious. Next one is autobusi, autobusi, which is just like a normal sized bus. And then metro, metro, so just the metro. So I think those are, it's good to know, just good words that if ever you're trying to plan any sort of travel or transportation, it'll be good to know these words. So this next phrase is mivdivar, mivdivar, and it means I am going. And I think this will be very useful if you're traveling throughout Georgia, if you're trying to get anywhere. So for instance, you could say something like Tbilisi mivdivar, Tbilisi mivdivar, I am going to Tbilisi. And if you're going to any of the marshutka stations, or if you're going to any taxi or someone, if you're passing by them, they might say sad or site, site midihar or sad midihar, like where are you going? And you can reply and say Batum shimivdivar, Batum shimivdivar, or I am going to Batumi. So anytime you're trying to get around or explain to someone where you're going, this will be very useful.